my badass women of Herstory, Hermila Galindo. Now this is Hispanic Heritage Month, and I should have wore a Hispanic shirt, but I just woke up. This is just what I was wearing. So Hermila Galindo was a pioneer in the feminist movement in Mexico and made defending women's rights the basis of her political career. She founded the feminist seminar, The Modern Woman, which promoted the development of promoted the development of women and defended their position in the social structure. I skipped a line. She fought for secular education, sex education. See, I just saw sex and I was just like, and women's right to exercise their sexuality. Hermila Galindo Acosta, also known as Hermila Galindo de Topete, was born June 2nd, 1886, and passed on the 18th of August, 1954. Mexican feminist and writer, an early supporter of many radical feminist issues, primarily sex education in schools, women's suffrage, and divorce. She was one of the first feminists to state that Catholicism in Mexico was thwarting feminist efforts and was the first woman to run for elected office in Mexico. So in her early life, she was born in Lerdo, Mexico, Durango. Shout out to Durango, because that's where my dad was born. Gomez Palacio, Durango. To Rosario Galindo and Hermila Acosta. I can't tell. I guess Rosario is the dude. She began her education in Villa Lerdo and then attending an industrial school in Chihuahua. Excuse me, I didn't take my allergy pills last night. Learning accounting, shorthand, telegraphy, typing, as well as English and Spanish. At the age of 13, she returned home and gave private lessons in shorthand and typing to children. In 1911, she moved to Mexico City. Arriving in Mexico City, she joined a liberal club and became a public supporter of Venustiano Carranza, lobbying against Porfirio Diaz. She was discovered by Venustiano Carranza while giving a speech to welcome him upon his return to the capital. He then offered her the opportunity to work with him in Veracruz. She became his private secretary and continued rallying support for the rights of Mexican women and liberal ideologies. Carranza supported her efforts, permitting her to distribute feminist propaganda in the southern Mexican states of Tabasco, Campeche, and Yucatan, and in the traditionally liberal state of Veracruz, as well as Carranza's home state of Coahuila. So Coahuila, that's where my grandma lived, Torreon, Coahuila, and San Luis Potosi and Nuevo León. Carranza also appointed her as his representative in Cuba and Colombia to publicize his policies in surrounding Latin America. In 1915, she created a magazine called La Mujer Moderna, the Modern Woman. Along with essays discussing feminist ideas, it served as propaganda to support Carranza. Almost all of her works helped the political campaign of Carranza in some way. The magazine also featured articles which expressed her disapproval of the Catholic Church and its methods of control. She was one of the first feminists to speak out about the church and its view of women. Sorry, there's a bird or something. Galindo collaborated with many other journalists and feminists, with the majority of these women being from Spain who were fighting for the same issues as Galindo. The most famous women that stand out from her magazine and articles are María Luisa de la Torre de Otero, Clarisa P. de Torres, Julia de Febles Cantón, Vida de Palomec, Micaela Rosada de P., Bolivia M. de Rivas, Rosario Rivas Hernández, María Pacheco, Artemisa N. Sanz Royo, and Luz Galvan. I don't know any of those people, and that was very hard to say, but I'm glad I did it. Although the magazine was titled La Mujer Moderna, she also included male journalists in her work, for sure. She eventually wrote Carranza's biography in addition to at least 5 other books. One of her books, Un Presidenciable, El General Don Pablo González, was written about the General Pablo González Garza, who was general during the Mexican Revolution under President Carranza. Her support for Carranza was incredibly obvious because Out of all her works related to him, even the feminist magazine. At the times, her views of sex education and women's sexuality were considered to be extremely radical. Her approach seeking equality and women's rights were seen as controversial. During the Feminist Congress of 1916, which Galindo did not attend, Cesar Gonzalez, an education administrator for Carranza, read a statement in which Galindo attacked the male double standard in Mexico. After these statements were read, conservative women's groups went on the defensive and came back with a statement which supported the traditional role of women and opposed women's education. Carranza allowed Galindo to submit a proposal for women's equality to the Constituent Congress of 1917, but the item was stricken from the final agenda. Her strong support for Carranza was evident in her writings, which expressed her faith in him and his potential to create a social revolution. Through him, she believed that women could get the vote, that there was hope for social reform. In the end, Carranza failed to create the change he promised. Instead, because of corruption, he was seen as an enemy of the revolution, which left Galindo disillusioned. On 2nd March 1917, she took matters into her own hands and filed as a candidate for deputy of 5th Constituency of Mexico City. Gabriela Cano, historian, reported it was the first time that in Mexico a woman contended as an electoral choice. Though some records show Galindo won a majority of the votes, the Electoral College rejected her results, claiming that they were only complying with the law forbidding women. She accepted the rejection, but made it clear that her purpose had been to show publicly that women could be elected and should be allowed to hold public office. In 1923, Galindo attended a feminist congress in the state of Tabasco and organized several revolutionary clubs in Campeche, Tabasco, Veracruz, and Yucatan. She later married that year and ended her political involvement. She died 18th of August 1954 in Mexico City. Man, shout out to that badass woman in history, Hermila Galindo.